Uh, would any devotee like to recite Gita Mahatmya today? Meenuji, would you like to try?
Prabhuji, I'm not capable, sorry.
I'll give it a try. I'm trying to remember the meter of Madan Prabhu, but I'll give it a try.
Thank you.
Gita Shastram Idam. Prabhu, can you remind me one more time, Madan Prabhu?
Yeah, it is just Bhagavad Gita meter, प्रभु. आप जैसे भी भगवद गीता sing करते हैं. Yeah, you can sing that way. I was
Gita.
singing little the different pitch yesterday, the higher pitch, like Gita Shastram idam punyam iha pathet prayatah puman.
Yeah, so I'll try that. Gita Shastram Idam Punyam Yapathed Prayata Puman Vishnupadam Apnoti Bhayashoka Varjita Gita Dhyana Shilasya Pranayama Parasya Cha Neva Shanti Hi Papani Purva Janmani Kritani Maline Mochanam Pumsham Jalasnanam Dine Dine Sakritadgitam Bhasi Snanam Samsara Malanashanam Gita Sugita Kartavya Kimanye Shastra Vistare Ya Swayam Padmanabhasya Mukha Padma Vinihita Bharatamrita Sarvasyam Vishnurvakritad Vinihristam Gita Gangodakam Pitva Punarjanma na Vidyate Sarvopanishado Gavo Togda Gopala Nandana Partho Vatsa Sudhir Bhokta Tugdam Gita Amritam Mahat Ekam Shastram Devaki Putram Gitam Eko Deva Devaki Putra Eva Eko Mantrastasya Namani Yani कर्मापि एकं तस्य देवस्य सेवा हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. Any of the devotees would like to read the translation first?
I can read the translations, Prabhuji. Thank you. If one properly follows the instructions of Bhagavad Gita, one can be freed from all the miseries and anxieties of life. One will be freed from all fears in this life, and one's next life will be spiritual. If one reads Bhagavad Gita very sincerely and with all seriousness, then by the grace of the Lord, the reactions of his past misdeeds will not act upon him. One may cleanse himself daily by taking a bath in the water, but if one takes a bath even once in the sacred Ganges water of Bhagavad Gita, for him the dirt of material life is altogether vanquished. Because Bhagavad Gita is spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one need not read any other Vedic literature. One need only attentively and regularly hear and read. In the present age, people are so absorbed in mundane activities that it is not possible for them to read all the Vedic literatures. But this is not necessary. This one book, Bhagavad Gita, will suffice because it is the essence of all Vedic literatures, especially because it is spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One who drinks the water of the Ganges attains salvation. So, what to speak of one who drinks the nectar of Bhagavad Gita? Bhagavad Gita is the essential nectar of the Mahabharata, and it is spoken by Lord Krishna himself, the original Vishnu. The Gita Upanishad, Bhagavad Gita, the essence of all Upanishads, is just like a cow, and Lord Krishna, who is famous as a cowherd boy, is milking this cow. Arjuna is just like a calf, and learned scholars and pure devotees are to drink the nectarian milk of Bhagavad Gita. Let there be one scripture only, one common scripture for the world, for the whole world, Bhagavad Gita. Let there be one God for the whole world, Sri Krishna. Let there be only one hymn, one mantra, one prayer, the chanting of his name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Let there be one work only, the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Meenaji. So today we are going to start chapter 55, named The Final Lesson. Any volunteer devotees who can read today or wants to read today?
Hare Krishna. I can read, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Anandani. Yes, please proceed.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, give me just one second. The final lesson. Despite his promise to live, Srila Prabhupada said his life was still in Krishna's hand. Everything was. His free choice did not mean he was absolutely independent. Rather, the pure devotee's attitude is to freely surrender to Krishna, whatever happens. In the mood of the gopis, the foremost devotees of Lord Krishna, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu prayed, "You may handle me roughly in your embrace or make me broken-hearted by not being present before me, but you're always my worshipable Lord unconditionally." Because the exchanges between the Lord and his pure devotees are always supremely personal, both the Lord and his devotees express desires and individual will. In his childhood Leela, Krishna sometimes breaks Mother Yashoda's butter pot, and sometimes he allows her to catch him and bind him. In any case, the will of the Lord and the will of the devotees are always one in interest, but they are sometimes expressed in the form of a loving conflict. Similarly, although Srila Prabhupada had promised his devotees that he would stay in the world and defy death, he still remained surrendered to the will of Krishna. Srila Prabhupada had already expressed his surrender in the prayer he had given his disciples to offer on his behalf. "My dear Lord Krishna, if you desire, please cure Srila Prabhupada." By the phrase, "if you desire," he was reminding his followers of the supreme prerogative of Krishna and was asking them to abide by it. Although he was also giving them an acceptable way to petition Krishna. In a similar case in 1967, he had given his disciples another prayer, "My master has not finished his work." He had said then that Krishna had responded to this prayer, granting the wishes of the devotees. Srila Prabhupada himself was responding to the devotees' prayers, and Krishna had given him the choice. But as a surrendered soul, Srila Prabhupada waited for further developments, ever sensitive to Krishna's desires. As Prabhupada had said when invited by Kirtananda to come to his palace in New Vrindavan, "Let us see which palace I am going to." As a loving tension can sometimes exist between the Supreme Lord and his pure devotee, so now a similar tension existed between Srila Prabhupada and his followers. Prior to his disciples' desperate petition at his bedside, Srila Prabhupada had seen his duty as instructing his disciples in how to die. Part of his mission was to set the perfect example in this most important lesson, how to pass life's ultimate test. But now his disciples were asking him to postpone the lesson in dying and stay with them indefinitely in the preaching field. And Prabhupada had agreed, showing that he had the ability to live if he chose. But sooner or later, he would have to return to the lesson on how a person should face the end of life. One special feature of Srila Prabhupada's activities is his relating intimately to the human condition while at the same time remaining aloof and transcendental. As a pure devotee, he was not subjected to the law of karma, which awards reactions for pious and sinful deeds. He was not born by the force of karma, nor would he die by force of karma. As stated by Srila Rupa Goswami, one whose body, mind, and words are fully engaged in devotional service to Lord Krishna is a liberated soul, even while living in this world. People often misunderstand the movements of a pure devotee within the material world, just as one, on seeing clouds blowing past the moon, may think the moon itself is moving. The Shastra therefore warns us never to see the Guru as an ordinary man subject to karma. But Srila Prabhupada, while always transcendental to this world, showed the conditioned souls how they too could come to the stage of liberation by constantly thinking about Krishna and serving him, so that at the time of death they could return to Krishna in the eternal spiritual world. And Prabhupada's lessons were always practical and universal. Srila Prabhupada's books, for example, were not mere theory, but were practical and full of realized knowledge. And Prabhupada practiced what he preached. His entire life was exemplary. He had been in family life, and even then he had vigorously preached. By starting his Back to Godhead magazine, in poverty and obscurity, he had struggled to start a spiritual movement. And by the grace of Krishna and his spiritual master, he had become successful. He had always shown by his human like attempts his willingness to bravely take on austerity and face danger. He had shown exemplary spiritual life for all to try and follow. He had gone alone in old age to a foreign country and had chanted Hare Krishna in a park in New York City, attracting the young men and women of America. Therefore, everyone should take his example and try to serve Krishna despite the immediate impediments. Srila Prabhupada encountered obstacles, yet by his free will and with the help of Krishna, he surmounted them. This was his wonderful example. It is said that Lord Chaitanya 500 years ago made surrender to Krishna more attainable than Lord Krishna had 5,000 years ago. And now, in the 20th century, Srila Prabhupada had made Krishna consciousness possible for people all over the world. As sorry, where was I? Did I leave? Oh, yeah. As part of his instruction and example, Srila Prabhupada knew he would have to show people just how to die. He had escaped death a number of times. I don't know where it went.
I lost it. Sorry.
In following,
Now,
he also knew that utter loving. We had read this. Yeah, there it is. He had escaped death a number of times. By Krishna's grace, by the prayers of his disciples, and by his own pure and powerful will to propagate his movement. But from the signs given to him by Lord Krishna in 1977, Srila Prabhupada began decisively and conclusively ending his mission in this material world. And among his final duties was his giving complete guidelines on how to die. He was perfectly showing how to do that which everyone had to do, but which is most difficult to do successfully, that is, die. But a loving conflict was there. Prabhupada loved his disciples. He also knew they were not yet fully mature. His movement already had great potency and stature in the world, and yet it had many enemies. He was inclined to always protect his devotees, his movement, and all living entities, even the animals. So when his most intimate and faithful disciples pleaded that they could not go on without him, he had turned from showing how to die, agreeing to stay and with them and preach. But at what point would they ever be willing to let him go? At what point could he say that the world of Maya and the enemies of Krishna were all gone? At what point would his disciples become fully mature? In following his decision to stay, Srila Prabhupada turned himself over to his disciples, allowing them to care for him completely. Those who took part recalled that never before had Srila Prabhupada allowed such intimate dealings between himself and his disciples. The only thing comparable was in New York in 1966, when he had been very intimate in dealings with the first persons to join him, persons who had known nothing of the etiquette of approaching a spiritual master. But those who were present now and who had also been present then said that these days were even more intimate. At one point, Kirtananda firmly insisted that Srila Prabhupada drink a full cup of juice, even when he said he had had enough. Kirtananda felt awkward, insisting, "I'm not like Mother Yashoda that I can do this," he said. "I keep remembering that you're my spiritual master." But Srila Prabhupada allowed himself to be ordered by Kirtananda. Similarly, Bhavananda, Tamal Krishna, Bhakti Charu, Upendra, and other servants coaxed Srila Prabhupada to follow certain diets and care for his body constantly. The other devotees were reminded of the story of Ishwara Puri, who gave intimate bodily service to his spiritual master Madhavendra Puri when Madhavendra was in the last stages of his life and apparently invalid. According to the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it was by his menial bodily service that Ishwara Puri proved his love for his spiritual master and was allowed to become the spiritual master of Lord Chaitanya. Srila Prabhupada had deferred the lessons in dying in favor of giving his disciples an unparalleled opportunity to serve him in pure and simple love. And he allowed this not only for a few, but for whoever came to Vrindavan. Many came and all were allowed to enter Srila Prabhupada's room, massage his body, and sit with him as long as they liked, day and night, chanting the holy name for his pleasure. Srila Prabhupada also recommended his translating, and this was done openly, recommenced his translating, and this was done openly. Whereas previously he had always worked in solitude, he now encouraged all the devotees to come as he lay in bed dictating his Bhaktivedanta purports. He was giving himself completely and declaring it also, telling the devotees present, "Never leave me, and I cannot live without your company." They had asked him to stay, and he had agreed, consigning himself completely to their care. Those who were blessed to have this service felt themselves passing over all barriers of reluctance to serve, as well as all barriers of material desires. By intimately serving Srila Prabhupada, they felt the strength of complete surrender and sensed that this would sustain them always, even when Srila Prabhupada eventually did depart from the world. Prabhupada also continued speaking, as he had in recent months, about being unafraid of death and being fixed in transcendental knowledge. When receiving a presentation of some of his books recently printed in Portuguese by Hridayananda Goswami, Prabhupada encouraged him and said, "This is life. The material world is just bones. The bones are not our real life. Our real concern is the living force. The bones may remain or go, it doesn't matter. The real life is sustaining the bones. There is even a history that there was a rishi who had only bones. So there is a science by which you can sustain life by only bones. Hiranyakashipu did it. You're also doing it, Srila Prabhupada, Tamal Krishna said. So take care of the bones as long as possible, said Srila Prabhupada. But the real life is here. Always remember that. The material world means we are simply all protecting bones and flesh together, but they have no knowledge of what they are. And when Atreya Rishi visited Srila Prabhupada and asked that he visit Tehran, Prabhupada said that he was ready to go. But now you have to take a bundle of bones. These were, of course, the same themes that Prabhupada had always taught, the same themes that were in his books, but the lessons were more poignant and striking when Prabhupada applied them to his own situation. More than one devotee compared Prabhupada to Bhishma Dev, who gave important instructions in his last days. As Bhishma felt no pain and delivered learned and loving discourses even from his bed of arrows, and as Bhishma determined by his own will the time of his departure from the world, so Srila Prabhupada spent his last days oblivious to his physical condition, defying death, and instructing his spiritually innocent sons. But Prabhupada's sons could no longer stand by and simply hear the philosophical lessons. Prabhupada had accepted their affection when they had cried for him to stay with them, and now they wanted to express that affection in the only world they understood, a world with Srila Prabhupada living and talking with them, laughing or reprimanding them as he liked. They wanted him to eat and drink and become physically strong again. But again, Srila Prabhupada seemed to change, and he began refusing food and drink. He had postponed his passing away to exchange lovingly with his disciples, and yet at the same time, by refusing to eat or drink, he was showing his preference for passing away. He admitted, when pressed, that it was an impossible course of action to live without food or drink, nor did he expect or want miracles. If he was to get better, it would be by taking nourishment, but for reasons of his own, he would not eat. He said recovery was material, and he didn't want it. He kept closely in tune with the will of Krishna, allowing the holy name to sustain him. The doctors who came were often puzzled, but those who were Vaishnavas understood and respected his prerogative. Prabhupada's servants made anxiety-filled attempts to induce Prabhupada to take regular treatment, but Prabhupada preferred to take only Kirtan and Bhagavatam, while at the same time sustaining a willingness to live. He empathized with his disciples' anxiety and patiently explained the puzzling situation they were in. He wanted their care, and he allowed them to try and treat them, knowing that it was bringing them more and more into a surrender of love. But gradually it became more clear that Krishna's will was indicating Prabhupada's departure. Srila Prabhupada, Bhavananda coaxed, always working on the assumption that Prabhupada could stay if he wanted. Your presence on this planet is the only thing that's keeping the onslaught of the Kali Yuga from really taking effect. We have no idea even what will happen if you leave. It is not in my hands, said Srila Prabhupada with perfect clarity of consciousness. Krishna Balaram. Srila Prabhupada always spoke clearly, logically, and with complete devotion to Krishna. Up until the last, he dealt with practical matters, forming a Bhaktivedanta Swami charity trust for reconstructing ancient temples in Bengal and arranging final details regarding ISKCON properties and monies. Through all the dealings, he stayed always alert and he absorbed himself in Kirtan and Bhagavatam. But it became obvious to his disciples that despite his promise, he was again moving inevitably towards giving the final lesson. He was teaching that love was beyond death, that a disciple's love could call the spiritual master back to the world to stay, and that a pure devotee has the ability to stay in the world beyond his allotted time. Meanwhile, however, he was progressing steadily to the final point. The devotees didn't feel angry with him or cheated that he was doing so. He had told them that he had free will given by Krishna, and they also, by their free will, had asked him to stay, and he had agreed. But they knew he was not obliged. Despite their prayers, Lord Krishna was telling Srila Prabhupada that he should come back home to Godhead. What could they do but accept? If Srila Prabhupada was accepting, then they would accept also. Nothing, however, could change the fact of their surrendered love. It had now become a solid pact that could not be vanquished by any material changes. They had passed the test of eternal loving service, and they could not take away that could not be taken away by death. Are we continuing to read or should we stop?
You can take reflections, Mother. It's 6:25. You want to kind of sum it up, Anandini? What your takeaways?
Those are amazing acharyas who were with Srila Prabhupada in the last days were so exalted. So much of love. You can directly perceive how gopis would love Krishna. And this is how Prabhupada practically demonstrated that it is possible to love with the same intensity without any lust. That was pure love shown in material world by our acharyas to our founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada. So it's so wonderful, and I cannot even imagine how Satswarup Goswami Maharaj would have been able to write these final chapters of Leelamrit. It must have been so heavy on him as well. And while I was reading this, I remembered my very first book of His Holiness Srila Giriraj Swami Maharaj, The Final Lessons, and I had read it at my very initial stages of coming into bhakti. And it is such a good book for, I guess, everyone to read, whether devotee or non-devotee, to come to the perspective that, how our death should be. Prabhupada had such a lucid clarity even at the end. It is just amazing how he was carrying on with ISKCON matters and even with creating a trust that would eventually revive and rebuild the broken temples in Vrindavan and in Bengal. So Prabhupada's future foresight, even at the time of death, is very, very rare. And that is something that only a pure devotee can have, because we see, death and dying in our practices. And it is very hard to have such a clarity, to be very focused. And I think, that is what we are practicing time and time again every single day, that when that final day comes, then when we are fully, at the mercy of Krishna and the devotees, then at that time we have that clarity to focus on Krishna's lotus feet and then give up our body. So very hard, but just reading these words, reading this from Srila Prabhupada, and Prabhupada showing by example, we just have to follow in his footsteps. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much for allowing me to read.
Thank you, Anandini Prabhu. I echo your comment that it would have been hard for Satsvarup Maharaj to write all this. This chapter definitely takes a different turn about deriving the lessons from Prabhupada's last few days. And I agree with your comment also on the life's final exam of Giriraj Maharaj. Um, I was also thinking that how in every moment of Prabhupada, devotees have tried to learn, take lessons. I'm often amazed by the uh, precision of recordings of the dealings which the devotees have done. Like for example, we we do our ISKCON Cincinnati program every week. We don't have that kind of a detailed record of what happened when Urmila Mataji came, what happened when the other speaker came or this person came. But here we have the entire life, last 11, 12 years of Prabhupada, so uh, so intimately recorded and taped and analyzed and studied by all his devotees for generations to come. I think the detail orientedness of these disciples cannot be underemphasized on how they have captured each and every moment of Prabhupada in these books for us, which is not easy. I don't remember what I did last year or yesterday, even for that matter. And now these disciples are writing something for all of us as if it was, happening in front of them or in front of us. Very beautiful reading. Thank you, Anandani. Anybody else? Madan Prabhu, Adi Guru Prabhu, Meenuji, Seema has joined, I see. Would like to share some comments.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Anandini Mataji, for the wonderful reading and wonderful reflection. Yeah, there is so much to share, but of course we have limited time. But yeah, I was just thinking, it's like this last lesson as we started, and correlates with the weather condition today here in Cincinnati. Also, there's like a storm. It's almost like a storm in the life of all the disciples there. Right, they're not sure what to do, what not to do, but yeah, at the same time, like Prabhupada was teaching, like Anandi Mataji, you were saying, yeah, like how to live, because that's the final stage. Everybody has to go through it. But as devotees, like we read, it is, even though Prabhupada was fully transcendental, still he is showing by his mood that he was completely surrendered. Right? Ultimately, that is the instruction that we are coming back to the point of surrender again and again. That even though he had full power, Krishna had given him the full choice when he wanted to leave, how he wanted to leave, but still he was again and again emphasizing that he was completely surrendered to it. It was all in the hands of Krishna Balaram. So that is the mood, I think, that he wants us all to come to as well. And yeah, in this world, recently I was hearing one of class, and my Guru Maharaj was mentioning about this point that real independence is about getting out of the cycle of birth and death. But yeah, he was sharing a funny example where he was saying that it was a real life story. He was saying one landlord, in America, Florida, he had like a lot of properties, and people, of course, identify with their body, right? So that is the point he was trying to make, that we are not the body, we are the soul. That's the one of Bhagavad Gita. But again, everybody is so entangled in this life with identifying themselves with the body. So he was sharing this funny story where he was saying that this landlord was getting a lot of complaints from his tenants that the lift that he had in his property was very slow, and as they were going up, it will take a lot of time to go. So then, but he was a very miserly landlord, so he was thinking what to do, and then finally he consulted some of his other friends who were also miserly, and then one of his friends said, "Oh, so what is the problem? So, okay, your lift is going slow. So what do you have inside the lift?" He said, "Well, nothing. It's just a lift." And I said, "Okay, you should put a life size. Do you have a life size mirror? You should put that inside the lift." I said, "Okay," and then he did that. So then after that, what happened? All the complaints stopped. Why? Because Guru Maharaj was saying that is just looking at the mirror and thinking themselves, how beautiful they are, how nice they are, and they forgot the lift was taking time to go up. So that is kind of a funny correlation that, everybody in this world is identifying themselves as just the body. And, once we do that, then we forget who we are, the true identity. But Prabhupada is teaching here who we are as eternal part and parcel of the Lord, always serving, even till the last breath He's serving. And that is the mood, like till the last breath He didn't stop serving the Lord. I was also thinking that, again, like yesterday also when we were reading, this like Prabhupada coming here, it's like at home in Vrindavan, this is the final lesson. For me, I was just correlating with our journey in Cincinnati, like we were reflecting on all the wonderful disciples of Srila Prabhupada are coming here and guiding us personally, even though they are in their 70s, some of them are close to 80s, like Chandramauli Maharaj, but still at their end of their life, they're not stopped, like they're not saying, oh, we have served Prabhupada for 50 years, let's just stop right now. Even at this age, they're traveling around, helping us understand again these kind of instructions, similar instructions, and how to live your life until the last minute, in the mood of preaching, in the mood of sharing, in the mood of uplifting, the next generation. So, Prabhupada coming back, for me, it is always like, I was telling Adiga Prabhu, and we have also had our journey from C1 to C2 to C3 to C2 again, right? It's like Prabhupada going from one center to another. He says everything is Vaikuntha. We all started at C1. Even before that, we started some home programs and, community centers and all of that. But Prabhupada traveling, and finally it's like, he wanted to come back to C2, which is our home. So we started at C1, which is like Mayapur for Prabhupada, right? Which is all our preaching started. Then he came to C2, which is our home here of land of Radha Krishna, that's what we wanted to name it as, Radha Krishna Temple. Then he went to C3, kind of a business center, like Bombay. He said, right, my worship place is Mayapur, my office is Bombay, but my home is always Vrindavan. So now he finally has come back to C2 and come back to Vrindavan. So just a small correlation that I had. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you, everybody, for wonderful reflections. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Devotees who would like to continue chanting may, but we'll do the Vaishnav Pranam here. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya cha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Gan ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Jai.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Krishna.